Hi guys, and welcome to the Arcana on Daily MTG. All throughout this week, we'll be chatting with various members of Wizards of the Coast to learn a little bit about the people who make magic happen. And today we have with us Kelly Diggs. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hi.
What is your title here at Wizards of the Coast?
The titles are a little weird, but I am a writer on the Magic Story team.
Awesome. And what does that entail on the day-to-day?
So we have a lot of different jobs. We're called the Story Team. We spend a lot of time on story. That goes everywhere from like really long-term, large-scale story planning to individual character arcs and important story moments over the course of a set or a block, all the way down to writing the actual fiction pieces that go on our website. Then we also work a lot with the art team. The story and the art team were formerly one team. We're split just because there's so many of us now, which is pretty cool. So now we're two separate teams, but we still work really closely with them. We work with them on world building. So whether it's a new world or a returning world, we spend a lot of time just sitting down and thinking about what does this look like? What's here? What do we need our concept artists to draw pictures of and all that, which is something that I used to do for fun. So I think if you can get paid for something you used to do in the margins of your notebook while you're supposed to be paying attention in high school, you're doing all right.
Yep.
We also work with them on the art descriptions. So a lot of people think that it's art directors who write the art descriptions that tell the artists what to write, but actually that originally comes from us. So a writer will be responsible for a whole set and will write these art descriptions. They'll go to the art director. There'll be a back and forth on that. And then eventually those will get sent out to artists, and it's the art director who decides what artists to send them to and everything. And on top of that, we are also on design teams and development teams as creative liaisons and just all the other stuff that Magic R&D members do.
Wow, that's quite a list of different responsibilities. So I think one question that a lot of people probably have is the whole chicken and the egg question, right? Of does the story tend to happen first, or is there like you guys get mechanics that you are then inspired to create story from, or what is that relationship like?
So everything we do is deeply collaborative and deeply iterative. So there's a ton of story inspiring mechanics, inspiring tweaks to the story, inspiring tweaks to the mechanics, and so on. In the past, it's been very much mechanics first. In the deeper past, it was, hey, we made a card set. We thought of interesting things cards can do, and kind of shove it over the wall and ask the creative team. So, what is that one? Is it a rat or what? Like we don't. The people who made the cards didn't care. These days, the people who make the cards care very much. Increasingly, we're doing the stories or the worlds first. And then the mechanics are kind of falling out of that with a ton of iteration and feedback. And then once they tell us what the promising mechanical directions are, we're able to tweak the direction of the world and say, we can make sure that that's present in the world. If you want that to be a major theme in this color, we can make sure that it's in that color, etc. So it's very iterative, but increasingly right now it does start with the story, or at least that's what they tell me.
And I know most recently Magic had a shift on this emphasis of story. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more about what that means in terms of what you see in the cards and things like that?
Sure. So how much story appears on cards and how central a role Magic Story plays has also fluctuated wildly over the years. There was a time, the Weatherlight Saga, when virtually every moment of the story was represented on a card, and virtually every card represented a moment in the story, or at least something that the heroes had seen on their journeys or whatever. That's awesome if you are willing to put forth the effort to get all the cards and piece them together and figure out what order they go in. I was that goob. I loved doing that. But for the more casual follower of the story, it's a lot harder. And it also results in some individual pieces of card art that are a bit baffling. I think in one of the sets from the Weatherlight Saga, there are 2 or 3 pieces of art that are the same 3 people around a table. There's just different moments in their conversation, who's talking, who's yelling, whatever. And it's like that's not super compelling. So we are definitely inspired by that. We don't want to go to that extreme. At the same time, after that, there was a period where the philosophy was cards are bad at telling stories. They're randomized game pieces. You shouldn't ever really try to tell a story on cards. And we backed off from that also. So what we're trying to do now is make sure that the most important moments in the story, we boil it down to 5, although often it's functionally it's a bit more than that. The most important moments of the story are on cards that you will see, in Battle for Zendikar, for example. Ugin and Jace speak and duel a little at the eye of Ugin, and Ugin is able to give Jace some more information about the Hedrons and how they work, how to use them to fight Ulamog. So we have this card, Ugin's Insight, which was designed to be the card for that moment, was ushered through the whole process, given art and flavor text and a name and everything that pushed in that direction. So even if you don't know what order that happened in or what the significance was, you at least know that Jace and Ugin talked and something important happened. With then the goal being that we've got our website with the fiction pieces on it going up every week that you can then check out and get kind of what we think of as the whole story if you want to dive that deep. We want you to be able to follow the story without diving that deep if you don't want to dive that deep. Not everyone does, but a lot of people do. A lot of people read our fiction, and we're really, really gratified by that.
Shifting gears a little bit, I know that you've held a number of different positions here at Wizards over your time here. Can you talk a little bit about the different roles you've played and how you ended up on the creative team and all of
that? My personal journey has been bizarre, but it is emblematic of what I think is one of Wizards' strengths, which is that there is an understanding, particularly in R&D, but I think in a lot of different parts of the company, that the people will bounce around a bit before they find the thing they need, that the thing that you hired them to do may not be the thing that they're best suited for. And above all, we try to hire really great people who can play some role. That's the theory anyway. So I originally started working for Wizards because I was writing for a third-party website doing humor articles, actually. Humor and flavor. I wrote a satirical review of the flavor of Ravnica that was very, very popular, the original Ravnica, which meant that when I did finally meet people inside the building, I believe it was Ken Troop, who was in charge of the creative team at the time, said, "Oh, you're that guy." that was awkward. It was awkward, but I had put in my little bio that I was an editor. They were looking for a part-time contract editor to edit event coverage, text event coverage. This was before we were doing video event coverage really at all, before anybody was. So I came on doing that, and then since I was working as a contractor for Wizards, and I was living in Illinois at the time, but I was going to fly out to Seattle for a wedding. So I shot Mark Rosewater an email because I had the connection to the company. I think if I had really cold called him on this, I don't think it would have worked. But because I had the connection to the company already, I said, "Hey, would you like to have lunch?" So we had lunch and we talked, and I thought it went well. My thinking was, maybe a year or two when my resume hits his desk, because I wanted to be a card designer at the time. He'll remember me. That's great. Turned out they were looking for an editor within R&D who would split time between web editing and card editing. So I got an email from the head of Magic R&D that night, that afternoon. Like by the time I got back from lunch, I had an email waiting for me, which is unusual. It's unusual. I got very lucky, but really, I put myself out there. I made myself known. I made my skills known. That not only do I know Magic really well, but I'm also an editor, or whatever it is you are. That's really important too. So I came on in this kind of hybrid web editing, card editing position. That turned out to be an awkward fit workload-wise, because the web editing is just kind of a relentless amount of your time, and the card editing fluctuates a ton. So when the card editing was peaking, it was just too much stuff. So I ended up copy editing the website full-time. Later ended up running the website and copy editing it, which was never exactly the plan. It was a bit much, but I certainly had to learn a lot on the fly. And I did that for like 3 years, and then senior editor Del Loggle had a position open back doing card editing in Magic R&D, and she approached me and asked if I was interested. So I came back and did card editing in R&D for 2 years, which is an experience I'm incredibly grateful for. It made me just a better employee, a better person, learned a ton from Dell, and getting to see that really crunchy final stage of putting cards together, where you're asking, are these two letters too close together, or what should the exact wording of this ability be, gave me a lot of appreciation for the fact that every single thing we do when we're putting a card together has to actually be executed on, has to actually be put on a card in a functional way. It's a great idea for a mechanic doesn't matter if you can't find good words to say it. Mm-hmm. And then as the story team ramped up for this new direction in storytelling, I really took notice of that. I'd always been interested in fiction, in science fiction and fantasy, had done a fair amount of fiction writing, world building, like I said. So I'd always sort of been interested in the creative team, but it was really that new direction in storytelling that I thought, okay, I got to get in on this. So I talked with Dell, I talked with the folks on the story team, including the manager, Jenna Helland. Everybody was really supportive of me. I spent a 6-month kind of trial stint on the creative team and wound up sticking there. So in addition to my deep knowledge of magic, honestly, the biggest thing that I bring to the table on the story team is that I've sat everywhere. I know everybody. I have at least some, sometimes out of date, but at least some information about what a ton of different teams do. I've been on design teams and development teams. I've been a lead editor. I've now done flavor text both, as a flavor text contributor, as a flavor text coordinator on the creative team, and as the editor editing the flavor text and giving comments back. So I have this broad perspective that nobody else has, just because I have bounced around so much.
What advice would you give to aspiring writers or creative people who have a strong interest in Wizards as a potential company? Like, what would you say is things that they should be doing to, look if they're interested in working here someday?
So one of the big things is just put yourself out there. Like, find places to write about the game, whether it's a blog or just on Twitter or on one of the independent sites. Find places to put yourself out there. You want to be careful. You want to think critically, but not be a jerk about it. Looking back on some of the things I wrote in my humor articles, I think if I had gone straight in and applied to be on the creative team, they might not have hired me, because they might have been a little irritated with me. I would have been a little irritated with me, although some of the jokes are still funny. So not saying you should censor yourself, but if you want to be in the building someday, be mindful. People in the building, we read the magic internet. We I won't say scour it, but we're on it. We're looking, and when somebody knows that we're looking for a particular technical skill or whatever, we'll keep an eye out. So put yourself out there. Just as far as being a writer, just keep working. Just keep writing, which is hard. I'm not going to pretend that's easy. I struggle with that a lot. But whatever it takes, just keep honing your skills, putting it out there, and that's a big deal. The other thing is whatever you want to do in the building, developing technical skills in addition to your knowledge of magic is really, really key. Now, it took me a while to understand that one of my big qualifications for being here is that I have played the game for 2/3 of my life. When I was hired, half my life. That was 9 years ago. But I know magic forward and backward just really, really well. That is a qualification. It doesn't always feel like it, but it is. I told my parents I would make money in magic someday. But other technical skills, my editing skill played a role. If it's community management or website management, coding, audio, video, like whatever it is, those technical skills are going to have a lot to do with what kinds of roles that they can hire you for. So that's really important to develop and to put out there that you have.
Cool. And it's impossible to pick favorites, of course, but if you were forced to pick a favorite planeswalker currently, is there any character that you're very excited to engage in as a writer or just as a fan of Magic?
Obviously we on the story team are at least partly responsible for the fates of many of these characters. So we have to be careful about the appearance of playing favorites. But you gave me an out. Speaking as a player,
yes,
Kiora, absolutely Kiora. That green-blue giant monsters ramp deck in Duels 2012 or whatever it was that introduced her was just that it was like a love letter to how I like to play Magic. I love her attitude. She is always confident. That's just how she is. And there's a dash of humanism in there. Obviously, Kiora being a merfolk would take exception to calling it that. But you know, she's someone who's literally faced a god and lived to tell about it. So as I've approached writing her stories, that's really what I've latched onto is that aspect of it. So there are soft spots in my heart for a lot of our characters. I really like Jace. I've had a lot of fun writing him. You know, I wrote his origin story and a couple of the other stories shortly after that. And the feedback I got was, you know, you're making it really hard to hate Jace. I was really liking hating him, and you're making it hard, which I found that very gratifying.
He does more than sculpt minds, right?
He does. He does. He goes on dates, but no. As far as just raw, like grinning ear to ear fun, I've got to go with Kiora.
Awesome. And I guess one final question. Obviously, I know there's a lot of things about the upcoming story that you can't really talk too much about. But can you give us any teaser or spoiler of something coming up that you're really excited about?
I will say this. The way we were doing the story before this big push, we were, and when I say we, not me, but the creative team at the time was really resource constrained and was forced to just kind of wrap up a block and kind of toss the consequences of that block forward into the future, focus on another block with another set of characters, and hope that their future selves are going to be able to catch that long bomb. That is not what is happening anymore. I've said that publicly a few times. That is not what is happening anymore. So a lot of the things that story fans are speculating hard about right now are looking at Battle for Zendikar, are looking at what little they know about Oath of the Gatewatch, are looking at the Shadows of Innistrad teaser and are going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You are going to see resolutions to that, and that, more than any single thing happening in the story, the fact that we actually know when we are paying off the hooks that we're leaving is so exciting to me. And I want to reward people who are paying attention. If they are scouring every little part of our stories, looking for clues, and those clues pay off, like, I want you to feel smart for reading our fiction.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for chatting with us today.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll check in with you next time.